Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, at least 2 Cameroonians have died in Ukraine since the war began. Hundreds of others remain stuck in the country, many trapped in basements in Kyiv, Kharkiv and Kherson. Their government has made little progress in helping them escape, and their families back home continue to live in agonizing uncertainty. Also, in Ethiopia, hundreds of thousands of people have been displaced by fighting in the region of Afar, east of Tigray. Local fighters facing Tigrayan forces say that they've been abandoned by federal troops that they'd supported at the start of the conflict. Our correspondent reports from the besieged region. And a singular beacon in architecture. Burkinabé Diébédo Francis Kéré has been given the prestigious Pritzker Prize. It's been described as the Nobel Prize of his profession. His work is recognized internationally for its ability to transform communities. But first, at least 2 Cameroonians have been killed in the war in Ukraine since the Russian invasion began in late February. Cameroonians made up one of the largest African communities that had been living in Ukraine before the conflict began, and hundreds are still stuck there as the fighting intensifies. They've received little help from the Cameroonian government and are still desperately begging for help and evacuation. Meanwhile, their families back home live in uncertainty. Our correspondents report.
Entire families trapped in a basement in Kherson, a city in southern Ukraine besieged by Russian forces.
C'est très dur pour nous tous, mais tout ce qu'on veut maintenant, c'est de sortir.
Adrian is a 35-year-old sailor who arrived in Ukraine 10 years ago. He's among thousands of Cameroonian nationals trapped in the war. In this amateur video, they recount the difficulties encountered since the Russian invasion.
We were lucky to be able to do some shopping. We bought rice, sugar, flour. There's no more bread in the city. There's nothing left. We eat once a day. With children, it's very complicated.
The Cameroonians, mostly students, tell us that they have made desperate appeals to Cameroonian authorities for evacuation. But all that they have received so far is a letter asking them to be more careful and to respect instructions imposed by Ukrainian authorities.
We have been calling, we have been doing all what is possible with the embassies, with everybody, and all what people are saying is wait, wait, wait. We are waiting, we don't have food, we are waiting, we don't have drinking water, and we don't even have, what can I say? We are scared.
5,000 kilometers away, in the outskirts of Douala, Adrian's family is living in agonizing uncertainty. The sailor's work in Europe meant he could cover healthcare costs for his father, who has Parkinson's disease. Getting updates from news channels and chatting with their son on WhatsApp gives his parents some relief. They're still hoping for a rescue from Cameroonian authorities.
When you send your child out there to support you, and he is at war, what can you feel? We've been in tears since. He was a big supporter of the family. He was the one who did almost everything for us. We really beg NGOs, humanitarian organizations, and the Cameroonian government to get our children out of this mess.
So far, at least 2 Cameroonians are known to have died in the war in Ukraine, thousands of kilometers away from their homeland.
Meanwhile, the conflict in Ethiopia continues. Clashes between local fighters and federal forces has eased in the northern region of Tigray, but battling continues to rage on a new front. Since January, Tigrayan forces have been entering the region of Afar and battling local fighters there. Hundreds of thousands of people have been displaced by the clashes and families torn apart. Afar forces say that they've been abandoned by the federal army that they initially supported. Maria Girth-Nicolescu sent us this report.
In this village 25 kilometers away from the front line, Idris Mohammed trained almost 400 militiamen. Now most of them have left to fight forces from neighboring Tigray in the mountains in the north of the Afar region.
Our militias fight only with Kalashnikovs. The enemies have heavy weapons, yet the government army is not taking part in the fighting. It's only the militias and the Afar special forces who are fighting. There are many dead and wounded, but the number of victims is still unknown. Some dead bodies have not yet been buried.
Every day, new wounded civilians and fighters arrive from the war zones, proof that hostilities are ongoing, contrary to declarations made by the TPLF and the federal government.
I was near Konaba in Mawe. They attacked us from two sides. We were encircled by 2 units. It's not us who went into their region. They are the ones who attacked us on our land. They are our enemies. Before the war, we were friends. We were respecting each other as neighbors. Since we shared a long border, we respected each other a lot.
The Tigrayan offensive was launched in January. Its goals remain unclear. Tigrayan forces might attempt to reach the road connecting Addis Ababa to the Djibouti port, thereby opening a supply route into Tigray. But the attacks have reportedly also targeted many civilian areas. Over 300,000 people have fled their hometowns. Fatuma Ali walked for a month with her 8 children.
I come from the town of Abala. We came down from the mountains by walking on rocks. We were walking, then resting and walking again. Some people said the Tigrayans are behind us, you have to run. Many people fell in the mountains.
Due to the lack of functioning hospitals, many women have been giving birth on the road. Among them are Eritrean refugees who have fled their country over past decades. Early February, one of the refugee camps was attacked during a Tigrayan offensive on the town of Berhale.
I was pregnant. My feet were swollen. I wasn't able to walk, but I forced myself. I walked under the sun with my children. We had no food and we were thirsty. It was exhausting.
The war in northern Ethiopia started 16 months ago in Tigray. Their humanitarian crises are also unfolding, but for the last 9 months, no journalist has been allowed into this region.
Now, this week, Burkinabé architect Francis Kéré became the first African to win the prestigious Pritzker Prize. Dubbed the Nobel Prize of Architecture, it's his profession's highest honour. Now, Kéré's career has gone from strength to strength ever since he built a spectacular school in his hometown of Gando in Burkina Faso in 2001. Today, he's based in Berlin, and though his work is featured in Europe and the US, he also regularly focuses on projects that transform African communities. He joins me now. Francis, congratulations. Thanks so much for making the time to speak to me. Now, the Pritzker jury said that you are a singular beacon in architecture, so there's no doubt that they're fans of yours. How do you feel about your win?
I am overwhelming. It's the feeling of overwhelming honor. I feel proud and so happy that the work that I have been done for years has been put under such a big light. I feel that it is for Africa. It's not just for me.
Now, the jury also said that you were equally an architect and a servant, particularly bearing in mind what you've just said about seeing this prize as representing the continent as well. Is this the way that you see your profession as being a servant of the communities that you work to design for?
No, architecture is a service to humanity, you know. And for me, it's totally clear that you know, those that cannot afford deserve also beauty and comfort as well as those that can afford, you know. And then for me, it's also clear that if you have a lot of material, not because you're rich, you should waste material. So this is my conviction, and that is how I started my profession. And so if you want, it's a service to humanity that I'm doing.
Now, obviously, architecture plays a role in reshaping communities, but do you think it goes beyond just bringing in infrastructure? Is infrastructure different to architecture in your eyes?
No, it's not totally different, but that is something that I have to highlight. Infrastructure and architecture are so present, that are prominent in our life. And for this reason, we have to put all the effort to just create things that are serving, but also inspiring. You know, to grow, we need inspiration, and that is important. So I don't see a difference between infrastructure and architecture. Both are made to serve humanity, and that's why we have to put all effort, needed to come with something that is at the same time inspiring, but not causing a burden to the environment.
Now, you're the first African and the first Black winner of the award. For you, is that an important aspect of the accolade?
For me as a person, I'm simply very happy, that the Pritzker the Pritzker jury has honored my project. But what I see is a lot of young people that are seeing in my way of doing things and in this honor, an alternative, something that, that will really push them to also to succeed in their different professions. So for me, it's like a big encouragement, a big push, to think differently, to really focus and do what you do. So really with conviction. So it's showing that you can be in a very remote place in Africa and do something great and gain light and be recognized. Mm-hmm. So this is important for me to say.
And when you're working on the continent, for you, is tradition or culture, in whatever way you interpret those words to mean, important to you when you're coming up with designs that will serve the communities that you're focusing on?
Of course, if you work in a given culture, it's totally important to pay tribute, to pay attention, to learn from the existing culture. That is how you can create things that make the difference. You have to respect the culture, but then learn from it to create something that is like future oriented, that is inspiring. That's what I'm doing. And culture is the basement of our future,
Thank you so much. And congratulations, Francis Kéré, there speaking to me after his win of the Pritzker Prize. That is, though, all we have time for on Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us, and do so again if you can. Take care.